welcome back to Cowabunga Corner. In this episode, we have with us Adam Carl, who was the voice of Donatello in Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Now, you have been into, I know, doing voice acting back in the early 90s to be able to get the roles down, but what got you into voice acting?
I started voice acting when I was a little kid. I started acting when I was a little kid. My first job was when I think I was 12 years old. And I was doing, on-camera stuff, like sitcom work, a lot of like guest spot stuff on sitcoms, and back in the mid '80s, late '80s.
Can you name any of the sitcoms you were on?
Oh my gosh, a lot of the top sitcoms back then. Like I worked on Cheers, I worked on Family Ties. I had like a recurring role on Who's the Boss. So a lot of the '80s sitcoms.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
I was a kid during those days, so
it was fun, and so was I. So it was fun for me to get to like work on all these shows that I loved watching every week, which was very cool.
Oh, that is awesome.
And then so around that same time, the agency that I was with opened a voice department, and so I started going out for auditions for cartoons, and I did again a lot of. I had a couple of shows that I was on where I was sort of a regular voice. One of them was a show called Defenders of the Earth, which was it had like Ming the Merciless and the Phantom, and it had like all the and I was Mandrake the Magician's adopted Asian son. That was the role I played. Okay. I think we did like 65 of those. There was a cartoon series I did called when I was a little bit older, probably around the Ninja Turtles time, called Peter Pan and the Pirates, which was on Fox. It was a Peter Pan reboot. And then I just did a lot of guest voices on cartoons. Okay. So that's how I got started, and just ended up getting the audition. I think I was 19 when I did Ninja Turtles, 19 or 20, around there.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, well, you were in the right age for it, so.
And when I got that job, I actually got it the night before we started work on it. And the story that I was told, if I had that, it's been a long time, but if I have this right, the story I was told was that, so Corey Feldman, of course, did the first film. Then he got busted for some infractions with the law.
Yeah.
And when he got arrested, which was, they were drug-related offenses, I think this is sort of public knowledge.
Yeah.
The story I had heard was it happened right around the time that George Bush Sr., who was president at the time, had said that the Turtles represented a drug-free America. So the studio wasn't thrilled with then the subsequent arrest of Mr. Feldman. So they decided to replace him. But I think the story was they actually replaced him with someone else first. And they started work with another actor doing Donnie in the second movie, and then weren't happy with the work they were getting out of that actor. So then they decided to stop and recast real quick. So when I auditioned for it, it was like, oh, and by the way, if you get this, you start tomorrow. And I honestly had never seen the first movie. I wasn't a comic book fan. I wasn't really a Ninja Turtle. I didn't really know anything about the Turtles. I mean, I knew who they were, and I knew about the phenomenon, but I wasn't really into it myself. And so when I went in, I don't even think, I'm trying to remember if they even played me a clip of Corey's voice doing it to try to match it. I don't even remember if they did. So I just sort of made something up. Like I thought, I don't know. And so I just sort of made this voice up. And they said, okay. And then you start tomorrow. Oh, all right. And so I really had no idea what I was doing.
You were just throwing it right in there.
Completely winged it, yeah.
Now, with doing cartoons, I want to go back a little bit here. Sure. With the cartoons, was there any shows that you were excited to be on?
There was one very cool experience I had. It was a cool experience. At the same time, it was sort of a harrowing experience. I was cast when I was about 15 or 16 in a Spider-Man pilot to play Peter Parker. And so I got the job, and I was recording, and Stan Lee, who's the creator of Spider-Man, was in the recording session. He was great. He was very cool, very nice guy. The problem was they cast me, but they wanted Peter to sound older. He was supposed to be like 17 or something, and I was maybe 15 or 16. I was a little bit young. And rather than see if I could do it at the auditions or at callbacks or anything, they just cast me, and they said, oh, and by the way, we want you to try to sound older. So they kept trying to get me to lower my voice, and my voice wasn't low enough, and it wasn't working. and they were really unhappy with me. And so it was a really gut-wrenching kind of a day of like trying to like give them what they wanted and not being able to do it. And it was clear that they weren't pleased. So it wasn't a fun day, but it was very cool to like sit there with Stan Lee and get to meet him and hang out with him a little bit.
It's a shame that they wanted something different.
Yeah, and they were very nice and supportive about it, but I could tell that I was the wrong guy,
Now, with meeting people, you mentioned Stan Lee there. Did you ever meet any voice actors that you looked up to through doing recording gigs?
So many of them. I mean, I would say that was one of the great things is being a kid and getting to work on cartoons was, it's a very close-knit world. And the people who were in it just go, some of those guys would go from session to session to session. On a Monday, they'd work on 5 different shows. They all knew each other and they were all working on everything. So I'm probably going to blank now on the names, but like Frank Welker was a big one, and I'm sure you know who Frank Welker is.
Tokan Razar.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest. And I remember one time he was trying to help me during a break because I was having a tough time laughing on cue. I still can't laugh on cue. I'm terrible at it. Can't laugh on cue. And so he was giving me tips like during a break on how to like fake laugh, or make myself laugh and make it sound, realistic. Really nice guy and amazing. Like to look at that guy's list of credits, it's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It's long. We got Scooby-Doo and so many other movies and shows under his name.
Oh yeah, and I know you recently mentioned interviewing Rob Paulsen. I remember working with Rob when I was a kid. I mean, if you threw names at me, I could probably remember better than if I.
There's so many out there, but you.
I'll tell you one was I did an episode of Batman the Animated Series a long time ago. We're talking over 20 years ago, and it was like I was there for a day. It was just like a guest voice thing, and I think by the time I went into the room, the session was already in progress, and it was really dark in there, and I couldn't see that well. And they just sort of ushered me to a chair with a music stand. But in thinking back on it, I'm like, wait a minute. I think Mark Hamill was in that room. In fact, I know he was in that room. And at the time, I was a teenager. I don't know why I wasn't completely geeking out. Like, I don't know why I didn't freak out and make a point of meeting him.
Did you realize at the time that he was working on the show?
I don't remember. And I'm thinking, what? But now that I think back, I go, oh yeah, he was like sitting like a few chairs away from me. And yet somehow it didn't dawn on me at the time.
But that's sweet to be able to work on and
it's very cool.
Those types of names.
Oh, absolutely. So. And I definitely worked with, in terms of the voiceover world, like I definitely was lucky to get to work with all the top, men and women that were working cartoons throughout the 80s and 90s.
So many wonderful names in that list.
Oh, yeah.
So many.
And I'm sure most of them are still working to this day because they're all,
Now, it sounds like you do a lot of pre-play shows. Did you ever do any dubbing before working on the Turtle film?
I think the only other dubbing I had really done was from shows that I had been on where you had to go in and loop a few lines because the sound was screwed up or they wanted to change something. So you'd go in after filming and there would be a few lines to fix. So I'd done some looping and dubbing then. There was one, I don't remember what it was at all. And I don't remember the title of it or anything. But I do remember there was one feature film that I did where they decided that the kid that they had that played the lead role in this. It was I think it was like a German movie. It was a kid and a bear or something. It's all vague at this point. But they didn't like the kids acting that played the lead, so they decided to redub the entire performance. So I did do that. I have no idea what it was though, or if it ever came out. I think maybe it came out in Germany or something.
And but
it was all in English, so I don't know. It was all in English, and they just didn't like the kid's voice, and so I just replaced it.
Wow.
Yeah. I wish I knew what it was though. To this day, it would be great to try to track it down and find it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No idea. But
now that means for doing Turtles, it was completely different to go in and do.
Well, what's interesting about that was that we were basically it was obviously pre-scripted.
Yeah.
But there was always extra lip flaps. The puppeteers were fantastic, but there was always sometimes it just didn't quite match the line of dialogue. So they would say, oh, well, there's an extra flap in there, so just throw something in there. You go, what do you mean throw something in there? Like an extra syllable, So you'd be like, Cowabunga, try to sort of make it longer or something, Sometimes it was a little rough, where you'd have to come up with a little ad lib just to try to, fill it in, And also they wanted to also just fill in the soundtrack where if you were, even if the character were off camera and it wasn't his line and there was something happening in the back, just throw some stuff in there, maybe ad-lib some things, to try to fill it in a little bit, So we were constantly, coming up with stuff,
Were you guys recording for the Turtle movies here in Los Angeles?
We did.
Area?
We recorded at what was then Skywalker Sound, which was George Lucas's facility in West LA. And I don't think it's there anymore, but it was, at the time, of course, state-of-the-art, beautiful facility. I can remember there would be breaks, and like someone who worked there would come in like with fresh baked cookies and like cappuccino. Like, it was one of those very high-end place. And I remember at the time we were there, Oliver Stone was there. He was doing the sound mix on The Doors. He just made the Doors movie, and so he was mixing it there. So I would see him like on breaks, which was cool, because there was like a whole kitchen area that you could go and like get coffee, and there was always fresh baked goods and snacks and things.
Now, do you know if any of the other Turtles were recording at the same time?
I don't know. I think they must have been scheduling us at different times because we actually didn't record together. We all recorded alone, and then there was, I think, 2 days at the end that they brought us all together to do group stuff.
Oh, really?
So that was the only time that I actually met those guys, was when we did like the group stuff together. And that was mostly like, fight stuff or crowd stuff where they wanted us all to be talking over each other or doing things at the same time, But all the individual lines of dialogue were done separately.
That is very interesting to know. I didn't know about the group sessions.
Yeah, there was just like one or 2 days, I think, of all of us together.
That would be neat to have seen photos from or something.
I wish that
there should have been somebody with a camera.
I would probably want to burn most of those photos because I was sort of a hippie back then. I had hair like down to here, and I kept showing up to these recording sessions barefoot, wearing like a dashiki. Like it was terrible. I was just like a wannabe poser hippie. So I probably looked ridiculous.
Now, do you remember any of your lines as Donatello?
Very few, although a couple are stuck in my head because people remind me of them. I just finished working. A friend of mine. The cool thing about this whole thing is that you realize that you are part of something that has a cult following. It's always a fun thing to be a part of, and that I'm constantly hearing from people that it was such a major part of their childhood, which is very cool for me. I mean, I was already an adult, but the people who are now obviously well into adulthood now were younger than I was by 5, 6, 10 years, and it had a huge effect on them as children. So they'll come up to me and they'll quote lines to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, that. So a couple of lines get stuck in my head, but I don't really remember a lot of it.
Well, can you give us one of the lines?
The one that my friend was very into, and I don't really remember the situation that well, but I know that it has something to do with Donnie. You'll remember, right? Donnie, I'm pushing something that's bouncing back at me. Yeah. That's it. That's the line. It's like, yeah. Like he was very into that. That was like, he's like, do it for me. I'm like, okay, but you gotta tell me what it was first. Like, give me the line so I can tell you. But
can I give you a line to do?
Sure. Listen, my voice is very different these days. Like, it was in a much higher register back then. But I can try.
Years.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can try, but the
right.
database is coded. The whole system might go down.
I can try, but the database is coded. The whole system might go down. And there were a couple of things that we did beyond just the movie at the time that they asked us to do. One was, you know how Barbara Walters at the Oscars interviews?
Yes.
So she interviewed us like after the Oscars, and she's famous for making people cry. So they had me as Donnie. They had Donnie like burst into tears and start crying.
And the mechanism breaks.
I don't even remember. I actually find we actually watched it. We found it on YouTube recently. Me and some of my coworkers, and we watched it, and. It was I couldn't quite follow everything. People were all the turtles were talking over each other, and I couldn't quite follow it, but it was kind of cute.
It's funny.
And then they had us do something for Comic Relief, which was it was the Robin Williams, Whoopi Goldberg, Billy Crystal. They do the Comic Relief for charity. They had us do Bob Zamuda, who runs Comic Relief, and used to be Andy Kaufman's, a comedy partner of Andy Kaufman's. He came and asked us, and we recorded some sort of like a pre-recorded video for Comic Relief that year, which I never did get to see. So
I'd love to see that.
I know. I tried to find it. on YouTube, and it didn't.
I've never even heard of it.
Couldn't track it down.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe they never even really finished it or not, but we just remember recording something for that.
That's some interesting stuff.
So those are my three Turtles related recording sessions, the movie and those 2 interviews, because after, for the 3rd movie, obviously they brought Corey back. And,
now, did you go to the premiere?
When did the premiere of
Turtles 2?
Yes, of Secret of the Ooze. We did go to the premiere. Here's my story from the premiere. This is all I remember. Was that we had, it was a very cool, big party. A lot of celebrity types, showing up there with their kids. It was like big tents, and it almost felt like a really enormous wedding. And they had us all at tables, preset. And so they put all of us voice actors at the table. Except there was one gentleman and his date that were at the table that I didn't know who they were, and the rest of us were all the voice actors together. And the story as I remember it, and maybe the other guys will remember this differently, and I'm completely lying to you, but this is the story I remember, was that we were all sitting there making fun of Vanilla Ice, or at least I was.
Awesome.
I can't say the other guys were agreeing, but I feel like we were all making fun of Vanilla Ice. Sort of rolling our eyes at that whole sequence in the movie. I was older. I was not a huge, fan of Mr. Ice, and so I thought it was a ridiculous sequence at the time, and I was kind of mocking it, and and I feel like all the other guys were, joining in, and we were all kind of having fun at Vanilla's expense, and then finally this other man who was sitting at the table that we didn't know spoke up and said, "You guys were all the voice actors, right?" And we said, "Yes." He says, "You guys all did such a great job, really. It was really, wonderful performances." And we thought, "Oh, that's so nice of you. Thank you so much. And how are you connected with the movie?" He says, "I'm Vanilla Ice's manager."
Oh!
And I mean, I just wanted to just curl up in a ball and die, of course. And I was pretty much just like, "Oh, that must be a really interesting job." Anyway, oh look, chicken. It was just terrible moment in my life. But
now, it's been a long time, so you've had a lot of other opportunities come and go throughout the years.
Yes, mostly go. But yes, no one.
What else have you worked on since Turtles?
Well, I worked a lot when I was a kid. From like 12 to around that age, 19, 20. I did a lot of just cartoon stuff, and then also just sort of like guest spot stuff on TV shows. I was on a show around that time, 92, I think. I was on a TV show for a season that was called Hearts of Fire, which was with John Ritter. And I was on that for about a season. So I was just doing TV stuff, which was great. And then right around that time, like mid to late 90s, I sort of wanted to start transitioning to the other side. I started to do a lot more writing and wanting to make my own films. And so in 96, I took my life savings, and much to my parents' horror, I took my life savings, and I had like an IRA for like retirement that my dad had started for me, and I cashed it all out. And like you had to pay a huge penalty to the government for cashing out early, and I took it all and I made a movie. And it was right around the time that Robert Townsend had made a movie called Hollywood Shuffle, and he had made it like on his credit cards for like 30 grand or something, and it was a huge hit. And it was sort of the beginning of that indie film explosion. And so everyone kept saying, well, yeah, if you just make this movie, if you finish it and it has a beginning and a middle and an end, you will sell it. You'll at least make your money back, because someone will buy it and they'll put it on VHS and they'll stick it, in the videos. Don't worry, you can't lose. It's not true. You can lose. So I took my life savings and I made a feature film. We shot it on 35 millimeter. We did the whole thing, and I essentially bankrupted myself. And nobody liked it. We didn't get into any film festivals. Nobody bought it. And in fact, I remember we had a big screening when we finished it. We had a big screening of it at Sony. We rented out the theater there, and we invited like all the distributors at the time that were the big distributors, like Miramax and October Films, and they were all the little mini, indies distributorships at the time to come. And they all sent, like an intern or, a janitor to come watch it. And I remember about 20 minutes into the screening, they all like sort of got up and like left. And, and we were young. I was 24, 25 years old, and I had delusions of grandeur here. I thought, like, I'm going to make this movie, and there's going to be a bidding war, and they're going to be on the we're going to, and it was, they just left. I remember we actually had 2 screenings that night. We had a screening for the distributors, and then later we had a screening for friends and family and all the people who couldn't, get into the first one because it was sold out. And between the 2 screenings, I was in the parking lot at Sony puking in the bushes, with my friend holding my head because I realized, oh my God, what have I done? So pretty much bankrupted myself doing that. But since then, I've done some acting since the 90s, little things here and there, but nothing like I did when I was a kid. And I've made two other features after that I wrote and directed, all of which were these micro-budget, indie movies. I didn't mean that sort of come out as depressing as it sounds. It was actually a really great learning experience. And some people listen.
It's still got to be a lot of fun.
It was one of the highlights of my life doing that movie, and also it was film school. A lot of people would spend many thousands of dollars going to college and going to film school. I did it on my own dime, but I did it, and I learned a lot. And I learned what not to do. I made a lot of mistakes. So that when I made my second film, I made completely different mistakes. I didn't make the same ones, but I made different ones. And then on my third one, absolutely. And I make different mistakes on every single one of them. But hopefully, the mistakes become less and less, and you finally figure it out.
Oh yeah.
I figure when I'm 80, I'll have finally figured it out. I'll make one decent movie.
Now, with working on all these different shows and movies and everything, you've mentioned that 2 of them have made kind of a landmark with fans that still come around.
Sure.
But is there any that did not become one of the most popular, but is one of your favorites that you ever worked on?
I guess I think for me, Hearts of Fire was a big one because I got to work with John Ritter, who was amazing.
Oh yeah.
Hilarious, sweet, warm, generous, just awesome human being. So that for me was a big deal. The show, wasn't a huge success, and not a lot of people remember it. But the fact that I got to work with him was very cool for me.
Has it come out on DVD or?
I think it actually is on DVD. I think at least the first season, which is the only season I did, I think is on DVD.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah, that was huge for me.
Okay.
And just getting to work with. For me, it was very cool. I was sort of the kid version of a character actor, and so I didn't really have a lot of lead roles, but I had a lot of fun roles, a lot of nerds, a lot of geeks, boy geniuses, that sort of thing. And for me, I didn't really have a lot of shows that were my own, but I got to work on a lot of different shows and work with a lot of the people that I really admired. So that for me was really a cool thing. It also let me have a relatively normal childhood, and because I grew up with a lot of kids who became teen idols or who became really famous and had a lot of troubles. I got to stay anonymous.
Yeah.
Sure, every so often, if I'd just been on a show, if Who's the Boss had been on the night before and I went somewhere, some kid might, recognize me or something, but I really got to be relatively anonymous through most of my childhood, and I think that helped me have a normal life and stay sane,
Yeah.
But I still got to have the experiences of working with some of my, comedy idols. I worked on Family Ties and got to work with Michael J. Fox. I worked on, Newhart and got to work with Bob Newhart, which was, huge.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of, of comedy and comedy history, and so that was a major deal for me. I remember the guy who directed the episode of Newhart that I did was Dick Martin from Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. These were my comedy heroes. So, and especially now as an adult, looking back and remembering, oh my God, I worked with some really cool people. Getting to work on Cheers, and work with with Ted Danson and Woody Harrelson and Kelsey Grammer. This was. And I was a little kid. This was a big deal for me,
These are memories that you'll cherish forever.
I'll never forget these memories, and also the fact that, but again, that I got to stay anonymous and just have a nice little career without having it destroy me and turn me into some, drug addict on the street. And I also was blessed in that I had 2 very, very normal parents. My mom was a school teacher, and my dad was a probation officer, and they had no idea why I wanted to be an actor. This was not something that they pushed me into. This was something that they were deeply horrified by, which I thought was very healthy. And of course, they were very supportive. And what they said to me at the time, and I'll never forget this, they said, because I was about 12 when I started, they said, as soon as this becomes more fun for us than it is for you, you're done. Which I thought was a really cool thing. And luckily, it never became fun for them. So, because it was just a lot of, I grew up in Orange County, and there was a lot of driving me back and forth to auditions and rush hour traffic. So I don't think it was fun for them at all.
Now, do you have any advice for inspiring actors who are looking to get into this kind of stuff?
Yeah, don't. No, I'm kidding. It's tough out there. I think it's far tougher out there now than it was when I was a kid, for a variety of reasons. One thing, I think it's, if you're a kid, and you're precocious, and you can read, you'll probably work. I think I was really lucky in that I don't think I was a particularly very good child actor. I look at some of the kid actors out there now. You look at like a Dakota Fanning, or you look at some of the, and you think these are fantastic actors that happen to be children.
Yeah.
I think I was just okay, but I had a certain look. I had this charactery, nerdy look that they needed, and I could read. And I could cold read, which was great, because if I could walk into an audition without a lot of rehearsal, and I could read even if they just handed me the script, I could read it, and I could sort of read it with the intent that the writer had. Like, I got it, so I understood, which I think helped me enormously as a kid, because a lot of the kids were just over-rehearsed by their parents or their coaches or their managers, drumming these lines into their heads, and they would sort of say it like a robot. Whereas I could just go in and sort of get the gist of it and do it. You know what I mean? So I think the naturalistic part I had going for me, it didn't really make me a particularly good actor, but I think it helped me get jobs. So I think I've had started as an adult, I would have had a lot tougher time breaking in. And I think that also, at the time I was coming up in the world, you didn't have to be famous or have a lot of credits to do television. You could be a working actor and do TV. And, a lot of movie stars shied away from TV. They didn't want anything to do with television. Nowadays, it's completely changed. You have movie stars doing guest spots on television shows.
Movie stars taking cartoon lead roles.
Which different. It's true. I have friends who make their living as voice actors, and when it comes to these big features, sometimes they'll bring my friends and say, "Hey, can you do a guide track for this celebrity so they can hear the whole Hey, how about just hire them to do it?
Yeah.
But they want stunt casting. They want the celebrities, and the thing is, most of the kids. If you're a kid,
don't care about the names.
They don't give a they don't care at all.
Yeah.
Let's keep this family friendly. They don't care. But they'll go see, they're going to go see Tangled, or they're going to go see, Aladdin, or they're going to go see whatever the big movie is. They don't care who the actor, the celebrity is that did the voice.
It's never mattered before, and why does it not matter now?
It's just that extra thing that the studio has that they can market.
If we put this name on it, it's going to sell tickets.
And listen, some of these celebrities happen to be terrific. You watch Aladdin, and Aladdin without Robin Williams is not Aladdin. I understand. I'm not saying that you should never cast a famous person to play a role. Sometimes they're the absolute right choice.
Well, a good example recently is the Ninja Turtles' last film, the CGI film. They had Quentin Flynn come in and do the voice for Casey Jones originally. Mm-hmm. And for a name, they replaced him with Chris Evans to come in and re-record the lines. Now, I've listened to the deleted scenes on the DVDs, which is Quentin's voice, and I've seen the movie. They both sound a lot alike. Quentin could have done the job easily, but he was changed over for him.
Sure. So it does make it a little bit tougher, I think, now, because the jobs for undiscovered, unknown actors have dwindled substantially. And yet at the same time, there's all these new tools to get yourself noticed. There's YouTube, man. There are YouTube celebrities.
Yes.
There are Twitter celebrities. There are Facebook there are people who are finding ways to use social media, or use the fact that video cameras now are relatively inexpensive. The editing tools are relatively inexpensive. You can do it. You can make your own film. You can take your film to film festivals. So there are, I would say, be persistent. don't expect to get famous overnight. Be persistent. Do it the right way. Study, learn, and of course, the standard cliche of don't give up if it's something that you really want. But at the same time, be realistic and find ways to create your own work. Find ways to do your own projects.
Don't copy somebody else.
But also, and I learned this the hard way, do it with somebody else's money.
Go on.
Right. No, but the thing is, you don't even have to anymore because you can do things so inexpensively now that look good, that sound good. So as long as the quality is there, hopefully it will cut through. There's just a lot of material out there now. There's a lot of YouTube stuff. There's a lot of people trying to sell their short film or their feature on the internet. But if it's good enough, you should be able to break through.
Yeah. Now, do you have anything to say to the Ninja Turtle fans who really do appreciate your work on the Turtle film?
Yes, absolutely. To all the Ninja Turtles fans who really do appreciate the second Donnie, the Secret of the Ooze Donnie, you're a bunch of masochists? No, I'm kidding. No, thank you very much for your support. It really feels great to be part of something, that has such a huge cult following. And to the extent that I've been able to, to make someone's childhood better, to give them a memory that they love, it's a huge responsibility. But I accept it, and I'm appreciative of it. And, I'll see if I can do this. I'm not sure I can remember, but I'm going to try. It may sound not accurate at all, but Cowabunga! Is that even close? Okay. Damn it.
And to everyone, we will catch you next time here on Cowabunga Corner.